Hello, this is Claudia, Arben, and Jovanny, and we are now going to explain the Gait model. So we're going to use Claudia's right foot, and she's going to begin by lifting that foot. Lift her foot, your foot, Claudia. Now, she's going to go into heel strike, also known as initial contact, and this is the 0%. This is at 0%. And in this position, Claudia's hip is going to be flexed at 30 degrees. Her knee will also be flexed at 5 degrees. She will be performing plantar flexion of 5 degrees, and her foot will be inverted 2 to 3 degrees. And she's currently in pronation. Now, Claudia will follow through into the foot flat position when this is 8% of the model, and her hip is flexed at 30 degrees. Her knee is flexed between 5 and 15 degrees. Her ankle is in 0 to 10 degrees of plantar flexion, and her foot is actually everted 0 to 2 degrees. Now Claudia is going to go into mid stance, which means the other leg is in the air, and right now her right foot is at 0 degrees at the hip, knee is 5 to 10 degrees of full extension. Her ankle is 0 to 10 degrees of dorsiflexion. Her foot is at 2 degrees of max eversion. Now we'll follow through to the heel off, also known as the terminal stance, which is 40%. And her hip is in 0 to 10 degrees of extension. Her knee is at 0 degrees in full extension. Her ankle is at 0 to 10 degrees dorsiflexion. And her foot is at 0 degrees, but it's beginning to supinate. Now, she will go into the toe off phase, also known as the pre-swing. This is 60%. Her hip is 0 degrees. Her knee is at 35 degrees of flexion. Her ankle is at 20 degrees of plantar flexion. And her foot is at 6 degrees of inversion, which is the max. But here, if you notice, her toe, right at toe off, was at 45 degrees of extension right before pushing off. Now Claudia is going to go into the acceleration or initial swing, and this is 60 to 75%. Her hip is in 10 to 20 degrees of flexion. Her knee is in 35 to 60 degrees of flexion. Her ankle is neutral but is moving towards dorsiflexion. Her foot has less inversion than the previous step. Now Claudia is going to go into mid-swing, and her hip is going to be at 20 to 30 degrees of flexion. Her knee is at 60 degrees of flexion, which is the max, and her ankle is more neutral but moving into dorsiflexion. Her foot is also neutral but also moving into inversion. Once again, that was 75 to 85%. So Claudia will now go into deceleration or terminal swing. This is 85 to 100%. This is where the hip is flexed at 30 degrees, and the knee is also flexed from 60 to 0 degrees, or 0 degrees to 60, sorry. And the ankle is at 0 degrees, so it's neutral, and the foot is in slight plantar flexion and inversion. And just to clarify, when you begin to lift your heel, you are going into supination as you're pushing off, and then bringing your foot into